Namaste, and welcome to our continuing series on the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are in the chapter Memory, Self-Consciousness, and the Ignorance. And we are on page 524, beginning with the sentence, "For it would."
So, since it's a week already, so we will just make a resume of the previous para and then we'll go on.
Very good.
So, what he has said in the previous para, so he has said there, if then the mind of man is the only highest reality, then man must always remain ignorant of the supreme timeless reality, grasping only bits of knowledge in fleeting time. In other words, it is a materialistic view, and if materialism thinks that mind is the last level of consciousness, the highest level, then you can never know the superconscient, and you will be permanently in ignorance. But if mind of man is not the ultimate reality, and there is a faculty of self-knowledge above mind, which is timeless and which witnesses time and space from above, perhaps spanning past, present and future in a single glance, then there seem to be two powers, knowledge and ignorance, called in Vedanta Vidya and Avidya. Again, two possibilities arise. Either these two are unconnected and independent realities, faculties, or they are connected and really one and the same thing. So, if unconnected, what happens? He is taking that, if unconnected, having separate origins and laws, we have the philosophy of dualism. But if they are connected, then the higher knowledge knows itself as timeless reality, self, Brahman, and sees time within itself. And again, we have consciousness as ignorance below, as a partial, superficial action of the higher, which wants to see itself in time, rather than beyond. This it does by veiling its own higher capacity. The lower knowledge can then become the higher by unburdening itself of its own self-created veils, sheaths of body, life and mind. This is what he said in the previous one. Now, we read what he is going to say here in this para. For it would be irrational to suppose that the superconscious knowledge is so aloof and separate as to be incapable of knowing time and space and causality and their works, for then it would be only another kind of ignorance, the blindness of the absolute being answering to the blindness of the temporal being as positive pole and negative pole of a conscious existence which is incapable of knowing all itself, but either knows only itself and does not know its works, or knows only its works and does not know itself. An absurdly symmetrical equivalence. He is telling us here in this para that it's ridiculous to think that they are separate.
What does
this will not know this and this will never know that.
What does equivalence mean?
Equivalence. Equivalence means condition of having equal power or force. So, knowledge is equally powerful as ignorance in their own field. So, this knows itself but doesn't know anything else. That knows itself but nothing else. And that is irrational, he is saying.
Yes.
Okay? An absurdly symmetrical equivalence in mutual rejection. Materialism is rejecting spirit and spirit is rejecting materialism. This is a theory. The theory of Buddhistic theory,
yes,
as well as Mayavada.
Yes.
So, that's why when he discusses various aspects, he discusses also, if you see it in this way, this is the philosophy. If you see it in this way, this is the philosophy. Okay? So his own view, we know that they are very well connected.
Yes.
From the larger point of view, the ancient Vedantic, we must conceive of ourselves not as a dual being, but as one conscious existence with a double phase of consciousness. One of them is conscient or partly conscient in our mind, the other superconscient to mind. One, a knowledge situated in time, works under its conditions, and for that purpose puts its self-knowledge behind it. It purposely veils itself and pretends to not know itself. The other, timeless, works out with mastery and knowledge its own self-determined conditions of time. One knows itself only by its growth in time experience, the other knows its timeless self and consciously manifests itself in the time experience. So, when the knowledge wants to know itself in time and space, because knowledge, the spirit, there is no time, no space, no causality, no karma. It is static. And if it is static and there is no movement, there is no causality. It's all static. The movement is only in the physical world. That's what we mean by the power of now. There is no movement at all in time. Then also you can also say it is immutable. There is no change at all. Therefore there cannot be any karma and there cannot be time. So this is timeless, spaceless, karma-less or causality without causality, no causality. And all that is here. But now suppose we have discussed that they are connected. So if knowledge wants to know itself in time, it has to veil itself and come down and come into time. The timelessness, it has to change into time and space. That's basically what
Is this first part closer to Zen?
Closer to
Zen.
Zen. Probably, I think so.
Because it's a form of Buddhism.
Yeah, that's right. Buddhism, they go even farther. They say not only this is separate from it, but it is also unreal. It doesn't even have a reality. Shamli is discussing if there is a reality and there is a reality there, they can be connected or not connected. In fact, in Buddhism, the lower is not even existing. In Shankara's philosophy, both are existing and both are real, but in different time and space. This is in time and space, that is outside time and space. Okay? Now he is saying that they are very much connected and the higher can come down into the lower and the lower can go up to the higher. They are connected. And how does the lower go into the higher? By destroying its own creations of mind, body and life. You destroy, you get away from this. Escape from body, mind, life and go there.
So it uses the veil of self-creation.
These are veils. Mind is a veil, body is a veil, vital is a veil. Okay? So, we'll make a resume of this and then go on to the next para. So, he's saying here, the connectedness of the lower and the higher is rational, because if the higher would be so aloof from the lower that it did not know itself in space, time and causality, it would not be the higher absolute, but only in ignorance. Because it knows only one part of existence. He is discussing now the connectedness. Okay, so if they are connected, it's irrational to think that that cannot know the lower, and lower cannot know the higher. It's possible if you think that they are not connected. If they are not connected like Buddhism and Mayavada, fine. But if they are connected, they must know, capable of knowing each other. The lower can know the higher and the higher can know the lower. So, it should not be we would then have a situation where the higher and the lower would be ignorant of each other, and we would land ourselves in dualism. But we have based ourselves on Vedantic Advaita, where one single consciousness exists with two extreme polar states. This pole of Vidya, pole of Avidya. Okay? So that's we are proceeding on that basis. Okay? We go to the next one. We realize now. Okay?
Yes.
We realize now what the Upanishad meant when it spoke of Brahman as being both the knowledge and the ignorance, and of the simultaneous knowledge of Brahman in both as the way to immortality. So this is the Isha Upanishad he is speaking about, where the Isha Upanishad says, if you are in the lower level of one, when you are in ignorance, you are ignorant. But when you go to the knowledge, when you go to the Brahman consciousness, which is in the middle, it's the second level. And there, you know only Brahman, and mostly you see the physical world as unreal. So if that is the thing, then that also is an ignorance. We are starting from the point that there is a connection. Then we say that if you go to the Brahman consciousness and see the physical world as unreal, where is the connectedness? There is no connectedness, so that's illogical. So the Upanishad says that if you go to the higher level and go into so-called Vidya, knowledge, and you cannot know the lower, it's an even worse condition than remaining in ignorance. It goes so far. So how do you solve the problem? You must know both. And how do you know both? By going to the third level. That's what he's saying. Okay? With this background, I'll read now, you will understand what he's saying. We realize now what the Upanishad, he means the Isha Upanishad, meant when it spoke of Brahman as being both the knowledge and the ignorance, and of the simultaneous knowledge of Brahman in both as the way to immortality. Immortality you can get only when you have the knowledge of both, the lower and the higher. Knowledge is the inherent power of consciousness of the timeless, spaceless, unconditioned self. Note the word unconditioned, featureless. There is absolutely no features at all to it. No color, no shape, no size, no weight, nothing. It's an absolute sort of negation, if you want, a blankness. But it's a blankness which is not negative, it's a blankness which is full.
How many in the ashram do you think achieve this?
About half a dozen people.
About half dozen.
Even my very close friend also had the experience. Mother once told him that I am very happy with what you are doing. She spoke of the Brahmic consciousness. But he said that, Mother, I am not doing anything at all. He said, that's exactly what the Brahmic consciousness is. You don't do anything at all, you are static. It lasted for about 6 months for him. I know of another case where the person was in a nursing home. Okay. In fact, I can tell you, it was my own sister.
Oh.
She was in the nursing home and she had a lot of problems. Asthma,
physical,
bronchitis,
yeah.
Skin problems, and also she could hardly breathe. The lungs are full of fibroids. So, and she was quite disturbed. One day when I went in the morning to her, she says, I have absolutely no interest in anything and I am absolutely at peace. The world doesn't matter at all to me. I said, this is wonderful. But how long did the experience last? She said, about 2-3 hours. And then you fall back into your normal condition. So it's possible to have the experience of Brahman for even 2 seconds. But that itself will enlighten you. Then it can last for 2 hours, 3 hours, it can last for 6 months. It can become permanent.
But Brahman is not just the silent mind.
Brahman is the consciousness which is static,
Yes.
above the mind.
Above the mind.
Above the mind,
Yes.
there is no thought there. No thought, no time, no space, no causality. And featureless and static. But it is wonderful because you are released. There is peace. There is a sense of infinity. There is a sense of not belonging to the limitations of the physical world. So that's a Brahman consciousness. Okay, so knowledge is the inherent power of consciousness of the timeless, spaceless, unconditioned self, which shows itself in its essence as a unity of being. You see the oneness of things. Okay? It is this consciousness that alone is real and complete knowledge, because it's an eternal transcendence which is not only self-aware but holds in itself, manifests, originates, determines, knows the temporally eternal successions of the universe. Ignorance is the consciousness of being in the successions of time. When you see time and you are in the successions of time, you are in ignorance. Ignorance is again a word only, okay, which defines this. Divided in its knowledge by dwelling in the moment. We don't dwell in the past, nor do we dwell in the future. We are only stationed in the present. Divided in its knowledge by dwelling in the moment, divided in its conception of self-being by dwelling in the divisions of space and the relations of circumstance, self-imprisoned in the multiple working of the unity. Okay, so it is called that ignorance because it has put behind it the knowledge of unity, and by that very fact is unable to know truly or completely either itself or the world, either the transcendent or the universal reality. So you call it ignorance because you have only partial knowledge, but it's a state of being that most men are in. Okay, so and it is the knowledge which has put behind it the knowledge of unity. When you go to the Brahman consciousness, there is oneness. Here there is multiplicity. You are saying something.
Yes, when the Zen Buddhists speak about living in the now.
Yes, that's right. The now is when there is no time. Yeah. It is static. They mean the Brahman consciousness, the self. And that's a great step for most people. It is so satisfying that you don't want to go any further. Okay? Now, living within the ignorance from moment to moment, from field to field, moment to moment, time, from field to field, space, from relation to relation, causality, the conscious soul stumbles on in the error of a fragmentary knowledge. Okay, it knows only the time. It doesn't know the timeless. It is not an essence, but a view and experience of the reality which is partly true and partly false, as all knowledge must be, which ignores the essence and sees only fugitive parts of the phenomenon. The fugitive parts of the phenomenon, time. So if you know that, it is only half knowledge and half true, and that's, you call it ignorance. This state is called ignorance, avidya. Okay? On the other hand, to be shut up in a featureless consciousness of unity, ignorant of the manifest Brahman, is described as itself also a blind darkness. There is the Isha Upanishad. If you go only to the self and think that that's the only reality, in a sense, you are in a darker condition than when you are here. Because you don't know both. Okay, so a blind darkness. In truth, neither is precisely darkness, but one is a dazzling of a concentrated light, the other the elusive proportion of things seen in a dispersed, hazy, broken light, half mist, half seeing. The half missed and half seeing is our condition. And sometimes some people take it to be the only reality. That's a materialist. But the yogi can also make a mistake. He goes there and thinks that that's the only reality. That also is a ignorance. So you go to the third level where you know both. Level 1, level 2, level 3. Okay? On the other hand, to be shut up in a featureless consciousness of unity. Featureless consciousness of unity, Brahman. Featureless, no conditions at all. And unity, you see oneness. Okay? Ignorant. So, seeing this oneness is an interesting thing. You can think of the sea and the waves. When I am sitting on the seashore, I am seeing the waves. But when I go to the higher level of consciousness, the wave is a very small incident in the sea. I am seeing the sea. I am seeing the oneness. I see the many, but they are no essential reality. They are only part of the sea. The sea is the most important. The wave is coming up now and disappearing.
Very good.
There is no reality to it. That's what he's saying. Okay, so in truth, neither is precisely darkness, but one is the dazzling by a concentrated light. This is the level 2, the Brahman consciousness. The other, the elusive proportions of things seen in a dispersed, hazy, broken light, half missed, half seeing. Our normal condition, what you call the ignorance. The divine consciousness is not shut up in either, but holds the immutable one and the mutable many in one eternal, all-relating, all-uniting self-knowledge, which is level 3. If you go to level 3, you know that this also is true, this also is true, but the conditions are different.
Shall we take the footnote?
Yes. The footnote is fragmentary knowledge. So he is quoting from the Isha Upanishad. Avidyayam antare vartamana janganiya amana. It's in Roman script, so it's difficult to put. Pariyanti mooda andhenaiva niyamana yathandha. So he is saying that when you are in the avidya, it's like the blind man being led by the blind. That's what he is saying. Okay? Oh, he is translating, sorry. Living and moving within the ignorance, they go round and round, stumbling and battered, men deluded, like the blind led by one who is blind. That's it. He is quoting from the Mundaka Upanishad, but there is also in the Isha Upanishad the same idea is there. Okay, so that's a footnote. So, now we come back to the basic idea of the memory. Now, what is memory he is going to discuss. Memory in the dividing consciousness, level 1, in ignorance, is a crutch upon which mind supports itself as it stumbles on, driven helplessly, without possibility of stay or pause, in the rushing speed of time. Beautiful language, and he is explaining so well. In the dividing consciousness, you are in the multiplicity. I can see everything as separate. I am seeing the many and I think that they are true. Because my consciousness is dividing everything. It is dividing into waves. It is not seeing the sea. So that is so there you need memory. Oh, this wave has disappeared. It came yesterday. So memory comes in with that, when you see the waves only. But when you see the sea, there is no memory. Okay, so rushing speed of time. Memory is a poverty-stricken substitute for an integral, direct, abiding consciousness of self and a direct, integral or global perception of things. So, when I am in the highest level of consciousness, I see everything. I see past, present, future. So, I don't need memory. I am seeing everything, past, present, future. When you are in time, you need memory. Because something has passed, memory tells you that that existed. And memory, in fact, Srimad speaks also of future memory. So that's the seeing the future. What is called Trikala Drishti.
Yes.
You see past, present and future. And that's how they can forecast what happened. Na? Srimad has forecast so many things. First of all, in 1920s, he said that India will be free. You don't have to fight for it. It will become free itself.
But didn't Mother tell him that also?
Yeah, Mother also told him that I have seen that India will be free.
Yeah.
She also is in the higher consciousness.
Yes.
Huh? Then one very interesting thing, which many don't know, that I am going to mention that, Surendranath, I think he was a member of parliament and he was a follower of Sri Aurobindo.
Ghosh?
Surendra,
Mohan Ghosh?
yeah. What was the full name?
Surendra
Mohan Ghosh. Yeah, he is the one.
Yes.
So when he came, he used to always, Sri Aurobindo used to see him. Even when he did not see anybody, he used to see him.
Oh.
So he saw him, and just as he was getting up and going away, Sri Aurobindo told him, "You haven't asked about China?" And then Sri Aurobindo said, "China will break up." So that's another forecast which has not yet come true, but it is bound to come true. Now, even astrologers are seeing that China will break up, Pakistan will break up, borders will change.
They are speaking about China breaking up already.
Yes.
Yes.
And the trouble has started already. So,
Yes.
so memory is a poverty-stricken substitute for an integral, direct. What does what direct mean? You are not seeing through your senses. You are seeing directly without senses. That's the meaning of direct. Because when you use senses, it is indirect. Whatever you are saying is coming through the veil of senses and it is indirect knowledge. But the direct knowledge is without senses, seeing directly. Okay? So memory is a poverty-stricken substitute for an integral, direct, abiding consciousness. Abiding, no change. It is living perfectly well without any change. Consciousness of what? Of self. And a direct, integral or global perception of things. Global, you see their entirety.
I want to digress for just a moment and ask what you feel about all these countries that want to break up and become separate. There are so many now.
Yes.
What do you feel about that all over the world?
This is very possible in the ignorance. This is likely to happen. You are going towards multiplicity. But the movement of going towards unity also was there. For instance,
Yes.
in India, for a long time it was multiplicity. There were 600 states, all different. But culturally, India was one, always. But politically, never. Unless the British came and unified the whole thing politically. Politically, they were all separate. And the same thing happened in Europe. They were all separate nations. But then they thought that it's necessary to come together. Then the European Union came into being, EU. It came into being. Now they have one currency, one policy, they have a European Parliament, all that is there. But now some countries are wanting to get away.
Yes.
Britain has already gone away. Hungary and other nations also are saying they want to become separate. So both the movements are there in this world. In India also, the Khalistan movement is to separate from India. Okay? Then the Tamilians also would very much like to be separate, but it's under, the idea is under wraps. It is not very, but they would like to. The northeast in India wants to be separate. There also they are negotiating still. The Nagaland.
So is it a minus? Is it a minus to want to become separate?
It's neither minus nor plus, because you are in ignorance, okay? Both in the ignorance, dualities are there. There are no dualities in the Brahman. In the Brahman consciousness, no dualities, oneness. But here dualities are there, so both are equally valid. Going separate as well as uniting with others. And note interestingly, the cultural background of Europe, they believe in the individual. You stand for yourself and assert yourself. So that is separation. Whereas in India, the condition was more towards unity, the family, the joint family, the nation. So there was a little bit of the other thing in India. The joint family is breaking up now because of the conditions in the world. But earlier it was there very much. But the joint family was not like that in Europe, it is different in the West. Okay? So
Good.
So, yeah, we are in memory. So,
Mind can have,
I'm just, yeah.
Mind can only
Mind can only have the direct consciousness of self in the moment of its present being. It can only have some half-direct perception of things as they are offered to it in the present moment of time and the immediate field of space and seized by the senses. I read that sentence again. Mind can only have the direct consciousness of self in the moment of its present being. It can only have some half-direct perception of things as they are offered to it in the present moment of time and the immediate field of space and seized by the senses. It describes it can have the direct consciousness, it can also have this multiplicity, it can see when seized by the senses. There are no senses there in the Brahman consciousness because knowledge is direct. But here you are seeing through senses which break up things. It makes up for its deficiency by memory, imagination, thought, idea symbols of various kinds. Its senses are devices by which it lays hold on the appearance of things in the present moment and in the immediate space. Memory, imagination, thought are devices by which it represents to itself, still less directly, the appearances of things beyond the present moment and immediate space. So, it's very interesting what he's saying. He's saying that when you are in the physical world and you are seeing the many, the tendency to see all, you want to know what was there in the past and what is there in the future coming, so that's memory is given to you. Memory is given to you even in the animal. Even the animal has a certain amount of memory. A crow will take some food and it can't eat it immediately, so it stores it in the tree. Next day it will come and take it. Memory is there. Dogs also, when they see someone who has thrown a stone at them, next day if they see, they start barking at him. The memory is there in the animals also, but memory becomes much more powerful at the mental level, at the human mental level. Okay, so the one thing which is not a device is its direct self-consciousness in the present moment. And that is possible in the Brahman consciousness. The one thing which is not a device, okay, there is no devices there, totally featureless, is its direct self-consciousness in the present moment. Very clearly, he is describing the Brahmic consciousness. Okay? Therefore, through that, it can most easily lay hold on the fact of eternal being, on the reality. All the rest, it is tempted, when it considers things narrowly, to look on not merely as phenomenon, but as possibly error, ignorance, illusion, because they no longer appear to it directly real. So Srimad is saying, call this condition error, ignorance, illusion, you want, you can call it that. But it's a state of being which is there. So he has got a very positive attitude. He is not saying that ignorance is bad. He is saying it's a way of seeing things. You see multiplicity here, fine. You want to see oneness, fine. Don't say that this is superior or that is inferior. That's what he's saying. Okay? He's saying, not merely as phenomenon, but as possibly error, ignorance, illusion. You can call it that if you want. So, the illusionist considers them. Srimad used the word so in this way. Thus.
Therefore.
In this way.
Yes.
Okay? It is like this. The illusionist considers them. What does the illusionist consider? The world is unreal and it is an error. And you have to go there. Okay? So the illusionist considers them. You have to read it like this. So the illusionist considers them. Students often make a mistake. It is, so the illusionist. No, it's not like that. It is so, thus, like this, that the illusionist considers them. The only thing he holds to be truly real is that eternal self which lies beyond the mind's direct present self-consciousness. Or else, like the Buddhist, one comes to regard even that eternal self as an illusion, a representation, a subjective image, a mere imagination or false sensation and false idea of being. They want to go even beyond the Brahman.
So when he says that eternal self,
the eternal self is the Brahman consciousness, but they want to go absolutely beyond that also. That's why they call it nirvana, absolute negation of everything. Nirvana, it is shunyam. You can go to a consciousness beyond the self, beyond the Brahman consciousness. Then the individual also is not there. Because in a sense, if you are in the self, in the Brahmic consciousness, and you realize that you are having that experience, who is realizing? The individual. The individual is realizing that I am now not limited individual, but universal individual. So who is having? The true individual. But even the true individual can disappear, and you can disappear entirely into total non-existence. That's the Buddhists. So they are saying even Brahman consciousness is a limitation. Why should you have an individuality? Don't even have the individuality. So at our level, we have ego and individuality. At the Brahmic level, the ego disappears, but the individuality is still there. Someone is experiencing that. Who is that someone? The true individual. Who is the true individual? The individual who is not limited to body, mind, life, is not limited to space and time. He is there everywhere, omnipresent. But you can go even beyond that individuality. That's what he is saying. Okay, so or else, like the Buddhist, one comes to regard even that eternal self, the Brahman, as an illusion, a representation, a subjective image, a mere imagination or false sensation and false idea of being. Mind becomes to its own view a fantastic magician, its works and itself, at once strangely existent and non-existent, real, unreal. This is also Shankara's stand. The physical world is real, unreal. Okay? So, strangely existent and non-existent, a persistent reality, and yet a fleeting error which it accounts for or does not account for, but in any case is determined to slay and get done with both itself and its works, so that it may rest, may cease in the timeless repose of the eternal from the vain representation of appearances. So, we'll look at the phrases. There are some phrases which you have to see. Mind becomes to its own view a fantastic magician, its works and itself. Its works and itself is the physical world. Whenever he speaks of works, it is movement, it is action, and that is only here, there is no action there. Okay? So when he is saying works and itself, at once strangely existent and non-existent. It is real, unreal. It is real in time and space. In outside time and space, it is unreal. Okay, so a persistent reality and yet a fleeting error which it accounts for or does not account for. So, which accounts for, Shankara says, it is Maya that is creating this problem. Or does not account for, no, the physical world is unreal totally. I won't even account for it, it doesn't exist. So, they are the two things that he is talking about. Okay, so but in any case, is determined to slay and get done with both itself and its works, so that it may rest, may cease in the timeless repose of the eternal from the vain representation of appearances. The appearances are in the physical world. So even when you want to escape the physical world, there are 2-3 ways. One way is the Buddhistic way. You completely annihilate the world, your individuality, everything, and go into the eternal unmanifest. Whereas the Shankara says, no, the physical world also is a representation, that also is, but if you want the divine, you have to go there, you won't get it ever here. Sri Aurobindo differs. It's possible to get the divine consciousness even here. So, but in truth, our sharp distinctions made between the without and the within, the present and the past self-consciousness are tricks of a limited, unstable action of mind. The unstable action of mind, very clearly our normal mind, unstable. Thoughts are coming and disappearing, thoughts are coming and disappearing. In the self, there is no instability, there is only stability. Immutability, permanence, fixed, no features at all. So, he is saying, our sharp distinctions made between within and without, the present and the past consciousness are tricks of a limited, unstable action of mind. Behind the mind, and using it as its own surface activity, there is a stable consciousness, there you are, in which there is no binding conceptual division between itself in the present and itself in the past and future. And yet it knows itself in time, in the present, past and future. But at once, with an undivided view which embraces all the mobile experiences of the time self and holds them on the foundation of the immobile, timeless self. When you realize your own self, then you are permanent, you know that. But here in the physical world, the divisions and errors are created because of your limited consciousness. This consciousness we can become aware of when we draw back from the mind and its activities, or when these fall silent. So when you go on watching this is one way of watching your thoughts. Go on watching. So then a difference comes between the seer of the thoughts and the thoughts. Then you go to the self. This is one way. The other way is to practice stability of mind. Try to make it stable. Reject thoughts. Then you also can go to the self. So 2 ways, Sri Aurobindo says. Okay? And holds them on the foundation of an immobile, timeless self. This consciousness we can become aware of when we draw back from the mind and its activities. Drawing back from the mind is observe yourself. That's the observation of oneself. Draw back from the mind and its activities, or when these fall silent. But we see first its immobile status, and if we regard only the immobility of the self, we may say of it that it is not only timeless but actionless. No movement there at all. Without movement. Movement of what? Idea, thought, imagination, memory, will, self-sufficient, self-absorbed, and therefore void of all action and universe. So, there is absolutely no time there, no action there at all in the self. Okay. That then becomes alone real to us, and the rest a vain symbolizing in non-existent forms, or forms corresponding to nothing truly existent, and therefore a dream. Shankara's philosophy. But this self-absorption is only an act and resultant state of our consciousness, just as much as was the self-dispersion in thought and memory and will. The real self is the eternal, who is obviously capable of both the mobility in time and the immobility based in time simultaneously. Otherwise, they could not both exist. Nor even could one exist and the other create seemings. This is the Supreme Soul, self and being of the Gita, who upholds both the immobile and the mobile being as the self and Lord of all existences. So this is the last bit. The Gita goes to the Purushottama level, the third level, where the world is real, the Brahman is real.
Wonderful.
You stop here?
Thank you. Namaste all. Excellent evening. Really brilliant.